Well, good morning. My name is Maddie Wettach. I'm a baptized and confirmed member of the Catholic Church and was a student at St. James Cathedral School for 9 years. I was taught, as the majority of people believe, that Roman Catholicism wasn't just the true form of Christianity, but the original. All other forms were just mutations or misunderstandings. Until very recently, this belief was accepted as fact, but recent analysis has revealed it for what it truly is: revisionist history. In fact, the Christianity of the 1st and 2nd centuries had a lot more in common with modern Christianity, a polyglot mix of different creeds, ideas, and beliefs. Today, I'm going to talk to you about how Orthodox Christianity came into being and how persecuting the heresies they feared did more damage than tolerance ever could. To start, let's define what a heresy actually is. Derived from the Greek word heresis, meaning to choose, a heresy is just that: a choice to differ from the Orthodox. For example, if someone was to believe in the teachings of Jesus of Nazareth, love thy neighbor, etc., but was not to think that he was the Son of God, that person would be a heretic. With that said, there can't be a heresy without orthodoxy. That would just be a disagreement. The Catholic forerunners took their first steps to becoming the Orthodox version of Christianity around 252 AD when Cyprian of Carthage finalized the doctrine of Petrine supremacy, which stated that the Bishop of Rome, the Pope, was the head of the Church. This was when the Proto-Orthodox movement took the name Catholite Ecclesiasta, Greek for universal school. The final step towards orthodoxy was to establish a canon of Scripture. Countless Gospels, Acts, Epistles, and Apocalypses had been in circulation since the death of Jesus. Of those, only 27 were compiled into the New Testament. The original list, the Mutatorian canon, was devised around 200 AD, but wasn't finalized until 400 AD. After that date, Catholicism can truly be considered the Orthodox. However, having won the struggle for dominance, the Church's first order of business was to erase any evidence that that struggle had even taken place. If the Church had succeeded, all we'd have left of the early heresies would be denunciations of them from Catholic forerunners such as Tertullian, Irenaeus, and Hippolytus. But thankfully, they failed. The early heresies fall into 3 main categories: Ebionism, or Judaism, Marcionism, or anti-Judaism, and Gnosticism. Ebionism, its name derived from the Hebrew word for poor, was more closely related to Christianity's Jewish roots. Its followers held that Jesus was not the Son of God, but instead he was born an ordinary human being and was only distinguished by his righteousness. Unlike the Proto-Orthodox, the Ebionites kept kosher and followed Mosaic law, which, once you factor in not being able to eat bacon and circumcision, was bound to alienate a lot of potential converts. The next sect is Marcionism. It's the opposite end of the spectrum because while the Proto-Orthodox maintained some ties to Judaism by claiming that Jesus was the foretold Messiah, Marcion declared a complete, clean break from the God of the Jews. For you see, Marcion and his followers believed that Jesus was not the fulfillment of another God's prophecy. In their eyes, the old God was imperfect, ignorant, and irrational and wrathful. Jesus was an entirely new God, peaceful, loving, and forgiving. To this day, many people still struggle with reconciling the vengeful God of the Old Testament with the more forgiving God of the New. While Marcionism gained traction in Rome, it never overtook the Proto-Orthodox, and the reason why is actually quite interesting. Novel philosophies were given very little credence. The common wisdom ran, if something is true, then it would have been discovered by Plato, Homer, Aristotle, or Socrates. Therefore, the only religions that were taken seriously were the ones with ancient roots. Ironically, it was the rejection of Judaism, the very thing that distinguished the sect, that ended up condemning it. The final and most enduring sect was Gnosticism. Gnosticism was named for the Greek word gnosis, meaning knowledge. Fitting because Gnosticism was based on the idea of secret wisdom. Much of what we know about Gnosticism comes from the Nag Hammadi Library, a cache of religious texts decreed heretical by the Catholic Church and hidden away by monks nearly 1,500 years ago. Uncovered in 1945, the cache contained the bedrock scriptures of the Gnostics. They included the rejected Gospels of Philip, John, and James, metaphysical speculations on the origins of the world, and even a few attacks on their heretics, the Proto-Orthodox. Gnosticism relied heavily on myths to explain its philosophy. The Gnostic myth of creation described a perfect realm of pure spirit. One of these spirits spirits who inhabited the realm, wisdom, attempted to create another being on her own, and the result was monstrous. She cast the deformed God that we know out of this realm, and he wrongly deduced that he was the supreme being and attempted to create his own world. When he attempted to breathe life in mankind, wisdom ensured that the essence of the aeonic realm entered us instead. Thus, humans were given the ability to transcend this imperfect world and return to the perfect realm from which we came. If any part of this sounds familiar, then congratulations, you paid attention last semester. The similarities between the Gnostic and the Platonic really can't be overstated and are quite striking. One only has to look at Genesis to find the standard Christian views on the inherent morality of the world. God created a perfect, sinless world in the Garden of Eden, only for Adam and Eve to willingly pollute it by choosing to eat from the tree of knowledge of good and evil. Thus, the material world is not inherently evil because it was created by God. Man caused evil through bad, selfish choices. The Gnostic view of the material world was almost the complete opposite. The Gnostics believed that the physical world was evil from the beginning, not through fault of man, but through fault of God. God caused injustice and suffering because he was incompetent. The pursuit of knowledge was not the downfall of man, it was his only chance for salvation. Before the discovery of the Nag Hammadi library, our main source of information on these Gnostics were these guys. The early proto-Orthodox writers that I mentioned before, Tertullian, Irenaeus, and Hippolytus. In 180 AD, Irenaeus, the Bishop of Lyons, contained a 5-volume denunciation of the Gnostics, appropriately called Refutation and Overthrow of Gnosis, falsely so called, though most scholars have just taken to calling it On Heresies. Tertullian of Carthage was more of an essayist and didn't produce many incredibly long